All right, guys. Thank you so much for being out tonight. Really, really glad to see you guys. And by the way, just make yourself comfortable. If you need to get up and get a drink or use the restroom, I do believe the codes on those is 2001 if you need to get in. Super grateful for you guys being here. We've been doing these Fireside Chat series on the third Thursday of every month, and we're super grateful to Blind Tiger for partnering with us to kind of run this speaker series. So the series overall has been interviews with local entrepreneurs, leaders, educators, just civically engaged, active citizens, folks that we think maybe you should know about, hear their stories. And a lot of what we're trying to do is explore their life's journey, some of their successes, maybe some of their vulnerable moments, some of the triumphs, some of the failure, ways that we can kind of maybe see or hear ourselves a little bit in that story, get a little bit of practical advice, how we're addressing personal, professional obstacles, challenges. We do hope we'll wrap up by 8 o'clock. I'm going to try to finish my section of this so that we have some time for Q&A. So if you have something you hear or you want to ask about, make a note of it, remember it, whatever. There will be a time for a little Q&A. My name is John. If you guys haven't met me, I'm John. Thanks for coming. We're here tonight with Christine Acosta. Christine, a longtime friend, and I'm super excited about this conversation. So she's the founder, and this is right off of LinkedIn. So I'm going to founder, principal, and chief overuser of exclamation points for Pedal Power Promoters. Right. She obviously is a woman that owns a small business here locally that she would frame as a social enterprise. This is Pedal Power. We'll get more into the work that they're doing. Just a couple things about her. So she's ridden bikes. She rode her bike here tonight. She's just told me she's 80% car free at this point, which by the way, is huge. Huge, huge, huge. I'm not sure many of us can hold to that, but she's ridden bikes in over 30 countries. 30 cities in 10 countries. There you go. She was a founding member and actually the executive director for a season at the nonprofit Walk Bike Tampa, and she served on that board in various roles since the inception. It's over a decade old now, and the organization is credited with meaningful impact around policy implementation of things like Vision Zero, bike parking, sidewalk installation requirements for developers, as well as, and I'm sure we'll talk about this because there's an upcoming event, but World Car Free Day, which is just we'll talk more about that, but an incredible thing that I think she told me the other day, I never thought I'd hear the word car free in Tampa, and it's a huge accomplishment. She formerly was the owner of a Tampa Bike Valet.
That's true.
Which she ended up exiting. She sold that to Two Wheel Valet in 2017. She's got a bunch of other things she's done. She was one of the kind of founders for the Vision Zero Coalition in Hillsborough County, really engaged with the League of American Bicyclists. Actually was at one point an award winner from them, a recipient of the Susie Stevens Joyful Enthusiast Award. Coast Bike Share, which we used to have here as a bike share in Tampa Bay. She was called she was acknowledged as the most valuable partner and brand champion. What year was that? It was of the year. One of them years.
Yeah.
One of them years.
Yeah.
So, I'll pause for a minute. I want to ask you a bunch of questions, but why don't I just toss it to you to kind of flesh out your own bio a little bit? What did I just fill that in? What did I miss? What would you like to cover? And then we'll kind of go back and walk through your story a little bit.
Thanks, John. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. If at any point you can't hear me or us, just give a little wave. John, I want to start by saying what an honor it is just to even be in a conversation with you. We are friends. We've admired each other's work for a long time, but I just consider you such a rock star in our community. And my work is, I feel pale compared to everything that you do and for so many. And so it's an honor to be here for sure. Thanks for the rundown I kind of forgot a few things that you that you mentioned. But I think what I want to say is that I have had the opportunity and the privilege to travel a lot. One of my family members works for an airline, and so I got to be on her buddy pass, and so that's
you get family miles?
Yeah, I know.
I want some of that.
You can hate
in my
me;
life.
it's okay.
I want some of that.
So I was able to go to so many different cities, and I use a bicycle as my primary mode of transportation. It brings me such great joy, and I'm able to really connect with the community, but also see a lot. And so when I cite that number of having biked in 30 cities and 10 countries, I am always sure to further explain that not as an athlete. You know, I'm not a person who is a sport rider, all due respect to them, but I'm a person that just prefers using a bicycle as my mode of transportation.
Wearing normal clothes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I try to pretend that I'm a Dutch lady in Tampa, Florida.
I like that.
So as you mentioned, I do wear two primary hats in our community. So I am the owner and operator of Pedal Power Promoters, which is a small business social enterprise. So if we were a really large company, you would know us as a B Corp. Mm-hmm. And then I also do my advocacy work for the nonprofit called Walk Bike Tampa. We have our board president here tonight. Thank you for coming,
Sexy
Christian.
president.
That's right. And so as we go about our dialogue, I might differentiate which hat I'm wearing in our community when we address some of these concerns or opportunities. There's a lot going on, but it's never enough. We continue to be one of the most dangerous places in the United States to ride a bike and walk, and it's serious, it's awful, and so we're really focused, the people that I work with, on changing that.
So what I'd like to do is go as far back as we can, because I'm curious. I'm curious about so many things about how you end up in this space and doing what you do and caring about what you care about. But what I'd like you to do is take us as far back, tell us a little bit about childhood. Where'd you come up, mom and dad? Tell us about the earliest formation of just your story.
Well, I come from a large family. I'm one of 5 brothers and sisters. I have 4 sisters and 1 brother. And my father was also very creative, an entrepreneur, and a chef, French chef. So he had his own businesses and also worked for some large organizations. And we moved a lot while I was growing up. So I got to experience a lot of different places. That was not always fun, but I always had my best friends, my sisters and brother, with me, and we remained very, very close.
Was that all U.S. based?
That was a little bit in Canada.
Okay.
But the rest in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And I was when I was growing up, it was standard for kids to be able to ride bikes around their neighborhoods. And when the street lamps came on, we knew. I'm really aging myself here.
But no, I had that rule. Who had that rule? Did y'all have that rule?
Yeah.
Street lights come on? That was So I shot them out. But anyway, go on.
I would like to be your friend back then too.
I was like, they didn't come on.
Right?
Go look.
Yeah. So I remember, the exhilaration and the joy for a young person, a child especially, to have that kind of freedom and to experience your neighborhood, to meet up with other friends and kids. We had a much broader footprint that we were comfortable occupying than children have today in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
Most kids are seeing the world through the back seat of a car, through the school drop-off line, through being taken everywhere for their sports commitments, for all the things that they're involved in. And I didn't have that, so I was really, really fortunate in that regard. And so I just remember, the joy of getting on a bike and just the sensation of that first rotation of your pedal and your wheels. It really is like you're flying. And I just remember that from being a kid. And to this day, I am delighted when I really just launch my bike to go wherever I'm going.
I know what you're doing in the space with cycling, with bikes, kind of all of the different mobilities, but like, was it genuinely like that profound of experience for you? Like, do you feel like early bike riding for you was like, no, that was like a really formative thing, or is this a longer story that like, or did you know early on, like, this is a love?
I knew that I loved it as a kid, but then I kind of forgot, like most of us, because you grow older and you get a car, and then you're driving everywhere, and so it wasn't until this part of my journey that I'm in right now began, when I was actually I'm the mother of 2 grown sons, and they were in high school. This was right around the Great Recession, so young people might not remember that or remember it very differently. But for me, the Great Recession was really serious and very threatening. And right around then, my sons wanted to be able to drive to school, but I did not want to add a car to our family budget. So I started using a bicycle, and it came right back to me, all that fun and love that I had for biking. However, this is Tampa, Florida, and it was pretty scary. It was really scary. I was biking then, so I had had a long and successful career in corporate life, mostly hospitality, hotels, and private sector, American Express, like big capital businesses that you would know. And I enjoyed that work, and I did very well with it. But I left that work to care for my dad at the end of his life. And this was all happening at the same time, kind of a perfect storm of some of life's biggest challenges. And my father was diabetic, and so he was wheelchair bound. And I've since learned what is happening to the older people in our communities, where we have such car-centric neighborhoods and communities, but when you can't drive anymore, one day you can't drive anymore, I can't drive anymore, this is isolation on a scale. In fact, the American Surgeon General right now has declared that loneliness is an epidemic, and we are faced with a tsunami. My dad was at the beginning of it, but the aging of America, this is a really serious wave of people who will be stuck in the suburbs. And what I saw my dad go through was really tough, and the built environment for a person on any kind of wheels, but a wheelchair, really awful. And so I was bike commuting because I was sharing our family car then with my 2 sons. I was caring for Dad. So I was just experiencing our world and the built environment in a really up close and personal way. And it was scary. It was scary. But I pressed on because, like I said, that exhilaration of being able to bike from my neighborhood in South Tampa to HCC on Dale Mabry, the most inhospitable space in our community, is everything around that campus. Dale Mabry Highway is among one of our most dangerous, they call it the high injury network. You know, we know all of this. And so I did experience a lot of that, but I didn't know how to talk about it. So I was returning college student, caring for my dad, trying to share my car with my growing children. And that's kind of what launched me into this space. I had envisioned going back to my corporate life. As I said, it was very fruitful, and I was successful, and I enjoyed it for the most part after Dad died. But I began to feel that I really wanted to do something more legacy-based. And having experienced some of these fantastic places, how often do we hear in Tampa, Florida, someone will say, oh my gosh, I just went to X, name a town somewhere. We walked everywhere, we biked everywhere, it was amazing. And then you say like, well, let's try to make Tampa like that. Oh, we could never do that. You know, so I did get to experience some really amazing places in the world where you can walk and bike without feeling afraid all the time. And so that's kind of what started me in this trajectory.
So you talked about going to HCC, and it sounds like now, were you? It didn't sound like it was right out of high school, right? So like, unless I missed something in the yeah. Like I came out of high school, no. I had some children, we raised some children. I worked in corporate space, hospitality space. Right. Dad gets sick, I come back. Then I'm already on a bicycle and I'm going back into college, right?
Yeah, I went to university right out of high school, and it didn't go well for me.
Oh, tell me more. Well, you know, it didn't go over me.
It was a big state U where I was in Utah, and I started working in hospitality at the same time that I was doing this college work, and the career stuff was, I mean, I was like a rocket in that space and really enjoyed it and had great success. And the university stuff, you know, it just, I was failing and it wasn't fun, and I wasn't meeting people that I felt were like my people.
Had you declared a major at that point?
Psychology. I had. So flash forward to your very astute observation. I was the token old lady student at HCC.
There's plenty at HCC.
At HCC is fabulous. I cannot say enough good things.
You were at Dale Mabry campus?
Dale Mabry campus and Ybor campus here.
Yeah.
And I loved it. And when I finished my associates there, I mean, for those who may not know this, when you go to HCC or community college, you take an entrance exam that is not to determine whether or not you can go to school there. It is to determine where you might be successful, what level are you coming in at. And so I did this. Now remember, my sons are in high school and they're doing all this extreme algebra and geometry and stuff. And I go into HCC, I take this exam, and they look at me and they go, well, Christine, it appears you've not done math in a long time.
You went to boom boom.
I did. And, I mean, I loved it. I loved it. I needed to get some traction and feel confident because I really had a lot of doubt. Can I do it? I failed before as a young person. And can I do it? And I'm really proud to say that I did do it. I had a great time. I had to do 6 credit hours worth of get ready to do the math.
Yep.
And but I loved it. HCC is full of amazing people that are gritty and determined, and all of the faculty there, the class sizes are small. You're not going to get the giant theater style of the big state U's, and all of the faculty there have topped out on their own credentials. So it is an amazing place, and I am forever grateful for the time I got to spend there. And I was bike commuting to HCC, so I was learning that kind of on the side. And then I transferred and enrolled in the University of Tampa, right downtown here, and finished my communications degree, and also studied government and world affairs, and graduated magna cum laude.
Well done. Woo! Well done. So while you were doing that, and you were, so what was it? It was government affairs and communications.
Yeah.
So what comes to mind is peaky in the brain. Like, same thing we do every night, take over the world. Like, what were you aiming at then? Because I'm riding a bike. This is where I'm ending up. But like, you're in college, you're doing like,
I'm doing communications.
These affairs. Yeah. It's like, like what are you at that point in time? What do you think is like, this is where I'm going?
I really did not know.
Okay.
I really did not know.
Okay. Well, do you know why you opted for these things then?
Yes. So as I mentioned, I was thinking after I finished my degree, my father had passed by then, my own sons were launched or launching, and leaving our nest, if you will. And so I thought that whole time that I'd probably go back to big corporate. And then I started to move away from that mindset and think, this is my chance to do something different and something that helps my community and frankly the planet. I do have climate anxiety, and so I felt like, what can I do? I'm just one person. So I developed a mantra that every decision all day long I would consider my body, my budget, and my planet. And so every little thing I would take those things into consideration. I still do that. And of course, riding a bike instead of using a car is the big trifecta. And so that's when I knew I wanted to do something in the community service, public service vein. And here's how I got to make my decision and kind of move along that process. I have to give a shout out to a fabulous organization. You may know them. They're called AARP, right? American Association of Retired People. And so they did a curriculum in downtown St. Pete in conjunction with the chamber there and an economic development hub they have in downtown St. Pete called the Greenhouse. Anybody know the Greenhouse in downtown St. Pete? An amazing place.
Dahlia's pretending she does.
Oh, okay. So I went there for a workshop. AARP was and some local leaders were leading people through something they called the Encore career. Because once you've had 20 years, maybe 25 years in any one career, you may need to or want to or have to move on. And so this is a really pivotal time when you want to really size up, what do I want to do? And so this study course really helped me figure out, in general terms, like I wanted to be out in the community, I wanted to do some good, I wanted to teach and share knowledge with people. And they introduced me to the concept, something called an informational interview. If you've heard that in your professional development, it's just sitting with anyone who will speak to you about their industry, their company, and you just pick their brain. You're not saying, please give me a job. You're saying, what are the disruptors? What keeps you up at night? What excites you in your work, in your field? So I took that informational interview, went out into my community, did some volunteer work, and had 40 informational interviews. And the 40th person was the one who ultimately offered me work that for which I formed Pedal Power Promoters.
Really?
Yes. It was Karen Kress of the Tampa Downtown Partnership, if any of you know Karen. She said, I've been looking to start a program of outreach to businesses about bicycle friendliness. Businesses can be certified as bicycle friendly through the League of American Bicyclists. It's programming very much like LEED certification. Does everybody know LEED, the green building? So, a national nonprofit provides all the framework, and anyone can use it to say, my business is bicycle friendly, and then there's an application process. So the Tampa Downtown Partnership wanted to start that kind of programming, and Karen said, is this something that interests you? I think you'd be really good at it. She could see my skills transfer potential, because I'd done business development, which is, just getting people to consider or adopt your product, your system, your methods. And so she asked me if I'd be interested in it, and I said, yeah, that's perfect, yes. And then it occurred to me that it's better for an organization to hire a company versus a person. Mm-hmm. So I formed Pedal Power Promoters right then, 10 years ago.
And over that time, my understanding is you helped start about 5 different kind of regional programs around bike-friendly businesses.
That's right.
By the way, Wellboat Bikes applied, which I thought was a slam dunk, because I'm like, we're a bicycle shop. How's that a problem? But also they're like, do you have showers for people that bike in? I'm like, we don't. There's a sink, it's tight. But right? Like, there's some questions on there. They're real. They're like, are you really looking out for people that are cycling in? I'm like, yeah, man, even us, I don't know. Are we gonna pass the test? We got it.
Yeah.
I still don't have a nice plaque, but we got it.
We'll get you that
plaque. But you did
and
like locally 125 plus businesses that you all worked with to kind of get this certification here locally?
Yeah. Can I brag for a minute?
Please.
So Tampa now has more bicycle-friendly businesses that are certified than any other city in the nation. Woo! I know, it's been really
I did
fun
not know
over the
that.
last couple of years to have good news about biking in Tampa, because normally you talk about biking and everybody goes, oh, it's awful here. And, well, we're just really clobbered. We are clobbered by a lot of bad news. Some of it's legit, some of it's not so much anymore. Like, we are making progress.
Yeah.
But it's been great to say we are #1 in the nation. Now, any business, if any industry, and any size can apply to be certified as bicycle friendly. So I've worked with lots of really small businesses, 1 or 2 person bookstores, but I've also worked with Tampa International Airport is the only major American airport that is certified as bicycle friendly.
Really?
Yeah. And so most people, when you say that, they go like, I'm not biking to the airport with my suitcase, right? That's our lens. But when you think about it, when you get to the airport, who is pouring that beer for you? Who is mopping the floors? Who is taking care of everything, your entire experience as a user of the airport? And that employee population is 10,000 there. It is its own little city.
Wow.
And we are now about to start working on the passenger experience. So if you have a short trip and you can go with a backpack, you will be able to, and you could today, if you know the secret routes. I would teach anyone who wants to know. But Tampa International Airport has been a fantastic partner to us. And I also like to brag about Tampa General Hospital. Again, 10,000 employees. They have the most robust bicycle commuter program of almost any organization in our city.
Really?
Yeah. And it really exploded during COVID.
Yep.
Think about it. They are on an island that is surrounded by water. The last thing you want to do is make more room for cars. You want to be able to use that land more efficiently and to the greater benefit of the community and your organization. So that's been a real pleasure. And even Blind Tiger here is certified, and so a lot of them. And so that was so successful that the city of St. Pete asked me to develop their programming, which I did, and the city of Orlando, the same thing. So I've worked in different pockets of Tampa and then those major cities. And it's been fabulous. It really helps us generate more interest. Businesses care about transportation because their employees cannot afford the $12,000 a year it takes. That's the average cost by AAA to own and operate a car. $1,000 a month.
At least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you can convert that car expense to your housing and live somewhere that it is comfortable and safe to bike where you need to go for most of your stuff. If you don't own a car, you also can be pretty generous with your own Uber or Lyft budget. So, this is the dynamic that I'm encouraging, and a lot of people are really, really keen on it.
So somewhere along that journey came along an organization, and it seems like it overlaps pretty much with Pedal Power Promoters. But when you were part of founding Walk Bike Tampa,
yep.
When was that? How did that dovetail into this? Like, where in that is this work?
Well, I had studied what other cities do to make their cities better for people walking and biking. And so I knew an advocacy organization was a critical missing link in Tampa. But as I said, I had started Pedal Power Promoters, so I really felt like I cannot do both at one time.
So that was up and running. You had launched that.
I had launched Pedal Power Promoters, and I was going to business leaders like Roberto, like you, like others, and they said, Christine, this program sounds great. We'd like to be certified as bicycle friendly, but we cannot, in good conscience, encourage our people to ride bikes in Tampa, Florida. So then I realized, okay, well, guess what? We need an advocacy organization then that's really going to hit the ground and work on those policies and the built environment simultaneously. And so I started Walk Bike Tampa with a group of really amazing people, and we were the first to introduce the notion of Vision Zero which is safety programming that declares any fatalities are too much.
Did that seriously originate right here? Like you guys started that?
No, we were not even the first city in Florida to do it.
Okay.
Fort Lauderdale beat us to it. And the city of Tampa didn't adopt it until very recently. The Transportation Planning Organization, which is a county-wide enterprise, they were the first to adopt it. I'm not going to name any names, but we went to the mayor who was there at the time, not same mayor as now, and we said, we really want to have Vision Zero programming in Tampa, Florida. And through his staff, he said, no, we're already doing a lot to improve safety. And, that was 10 years ago. So, that person didn't want to do it because a lot of people, we're really messed up as a culture in terms of what we measure and how we define success in our transportation networks. Does anybody here know, like, how do we classify whether or not a road is successful? What is the measurement? Traffic? Right.
Or lack of traffic.
Good. She's good. Traffic, lack of traffic. They call it traffic flow or level of service. Level of service says how many cars can we get through as fast as possible. So that's how we measure success. Well, if you're measuring that, you are not measuring safety because they conflict with one another.
Yeah.
So we don't have a definition even that enables us to really measure for safety. Now, some of that is starting to change in different places. St. Augustine completely rewrote what their roads are supposed to do, and a top metric is safety performance. But that means they have the power now to really bring down speeds. And that's what is going to make them a thriving economic place. As you know, they are well known for their tourism. But anyway, they've set precedent now. So for all the Florida Departments of Transportation that govern each of our districts, we can point now and say, wait a minute, we don't want to measure on how many cars we can move as fast as possible because that just means they're moving too fast and we're all at risk. Even if you drive a car, our systems are just dangerous for everybody all the time. So, yeah.
So there's a handful of things I want to run through, and there's some rapid fire questions that I want to make sure I get in before we open up to Q&A.
Sure.
We still have some time, but I wanted to make sure that we got to talk about some of the topics that we had discussed. So I am curious, like, well, one is there's an event coming up, Car Free Day.
Yeah.
And I wanted to give you an opportunity to, one, just tell everybody about what's happening, tell about like the evolution of that story.
Yeah.
And obviously I think it'll be pretty intuitive how it threads into like the work of your life at this point.
Yeah.
But like tell us about what's happening, what's coming up.
Yeah.
And how that came to be.
Thank you. I'm happy to. So World Car Free Day is not unique to Tampa by far. There are over 2,000 cities that celebrate World Car Free Day. Now, each city makes it their own. They do what they can do. As you know, we do not have a robust transit in Tampa.
Yeah, I've heard.
So, right? We love to support HART and everybody in that space too. So World Car Free Day in Tampa is Sunday. This will be the second time that we have a World Car Free Day. And what we're offering our community, we don't bash cars. We don't do any car shaming because that's just not fruitful for anybody. And we don't want to trigger anyone. But we do use the day to elevate the other modes that are starting to really be reasonable options for more and more and more people. This could be scooting, this could be golf carts, this could be riding a bike, this could be one wheels. Those are so cool. I don't know if you see those very often.
Yeah, I would like to try one. They look very expensive, but you've tried them? Are you good at it?
Well, I had a cute guide, so that made it fun.
It seems like, by the way, is everyone that has one of those cute? Because I think that's actually like, you have to be
like
cute
a requirement.
to buy one. Yeah,
Yes,
that's what it looks like
Submit
to
your
me.
hottie picture, and then you can buy this thing. No, those are really,
Be
those
cute
are really cool.
and have a good income.
Yeah, but the World Car Free Day is on Sunday, and so in Tampa, that means we literally do have very nearly completely built, but especially for this day, we have 6 miles of car-free and car-light space that our city has now really evolved to. And so that means we can connect all the way from Midtown on the west, here through Ybor, through downtown and up to Ybor HCC over here. So we have 3 activation zones between 9 and 2 on Sunday. And then we have 3 neighborhood meetups. So if you're not comfortable riding by yourself, to connect with this, it's called the Green Spine. But if you're not comfortable on your own, then you gather with your friends or your neighbors. You all go to, I'm hosting the one in Hyde Park at Buddy Brew Coffee. Yep. They're very bike friendly. All their stores are certified. And we even have an On Bikes, you know the On Bikes guys, wonderful group. And so they're doing a meetup in Hyde Park, and then we'll all connect to the Green Spine from there. Then there's a Heights meetup at Spatty's. Yep. And then there's one in East Tampa at Woodland Terrace Park.
Nice.
So those are little clusters, and so everybody rides together. And this is really the icing on the cake. I am so excited about this. For the first time ever, you know the critical mass, right? Yeah. Does everybody here know about critical mass? Every city has a critical mass bike ride. And so once a month, people gather and they just ride for fun and to meet each other and be social and have a great time. Well, now, this year with World Car Free Day, September 22nd, we are doing a critical mass, which is the children's ride. Have any of you seen the videos that are viral from a guy named Coach Balto, but he does the bike bus? I mean, this is so wonderful. We now have registered for this critical mass, which is at 10:30, I think. And the families and the children are meeting right outside the Children's Museum.
Nice.
There's a back driveway there normally where the school buses drop off for tours and stuff like that, but it's shady. And there's about 50 or 60 that are registered now. And all these families and children are going to bike to the Encore neighborhood.
Okay.
Yeah. The city's going to shoot it from a drone.
Really?
Yeah, to have everybody riding.
Is that going to be mostly down Cass? Is that like
it's all Cass?
Which is like the example of what we hope to see.
Yeah,
all
Cass
over the
is
place,
like
right?
the best that we have.
Right. Why? For those that don't know, there's like a handful of nodders over here, but for the doofuses on the left, like we're
for the listening public, Cass Street, from Howard Avenue all the way over here to 15th. Or Cascaden Park, ultimately. This piece is being, am I pointing the right way? This piece is being finished right now, so that'll be on the backside of HCC over there. It is what is called a protected bicycle cycle track. That means there's actually a hard curb between a person on a bike and people in cars. And so that is the premium bicycle
so good.
Feature. It's not perfect. Like that's our first one, so we're kind of going like, okay, let's tweak this way. If we extend it, we'll do a little bit better here or there. Like using that today, I got nearly right hooked 3 times. So there's a few trouble spots, but if you know what you're doing and you're cautious, as I am always, you can be safe. And so the Cass Street cycle track is part of what the city is calling its Green Spine. And so that is all these neighborhoods can get to Riverwalk, like downtown and the lovely Riverwalk, which is almost hard to bike on now because it's so crowded.
Yeah, it's packed.
A lot of pedestrian and bike conflict there, which people complain to Mayor Kasser all the time. So she has said she's committed to creating alternate space so that people, like when I'm on my bike and I'm trying to just go somewhere, I'm not just enjoying my community, although that's great for recreation. I need to be able to get there, and I can't do that weave and the wobble and, dog leashes. And so I need space that is more suited for bike commuting.
Yeah.
So.
All right, before we get into a bunch of the rapid fire general questions,
Okay.
I wanted to ask you a couple questions, and I'm gonna put them both out there so you can kind of tackle them together or as you want. So one, you've defined the work you're doing with Pedal Power Motors as a social enterprise. So I am curious, like, so this is like a topic kind of dear to my own heart, but I would like to, well, I'll just leave it at this, and I'll ask you the next question. I'll space them out.
Yeah.
But like, how do you define or understand social enterprise? I don't think that's a term that maybe everybody knows or is familiar with.
It's not as frequently used in the United States as it is elsewhere. But a social enterprise is simply a small business whose objectives are social good as well as enough profitability to satisfy the founders or the principals. Sometimes they're shareholders. Mm-hmm. We don't have that at Pedal Power. We're too small, but we do have myself and my Chief Operating Officer, Paula Flores. And so we want to be able to sustain the business financially through contracts, through things that we do in our city that are that we get paid to do. Mm-hmm. I can run through the quick list of kind of our product lines, if you want.
Please.
We are what is known as an advocacy dealer for bike racks. So that means you buy bike racks through our company, and then we went from the proceeds of that bike rack. So like we're a retailer of sorts.
So I know you work with Darrow. Do you work exclusively with Darrow, or do you do different?
Exclusively with Darrow.
Yep, okay.
But they're the #1 American-made product.
It's what you want to get. Yep.
They're everywhere. Any park you go to, anywhere, you'd go like, what's that bike rack? And like,
if you guys don't know that, yeah.
Say what?
No, you got really nice customs too. If you want something like branded for your spot.
We are working on a lot of customs because it really helps for placemaking.
Yeah.
And so a lot of cities, and we in Tampa are starting to really curate some cool custom bike racks so that you know where you are.
I love it.
When you arrive. And so we do the bike rack sales. We also do for developers bike room designs. Mm. So bike rooms for an apartment building are super cool because they're storage, of course, for your bike. But they have to have good bike racks that any person of any age or any ability can use and allow for the U-lock to be used. You usually want to have a bike repair station. You want some sexy and fun murals. You want good lighting. You want a place to set down, like when you arrive somewhere, when we all arrive somewhere, our hands are full. You know, we have our water bottle and our key, our purse or briefcase and, just stuff. And so you need really thoughtful design in your bike rooms. And so that's what we're doing with some of the developers.
On that real quick, so we get called, Wellboat Bikes gets called to a lot of bike rooms, apartment buildings, condos that have some pissed off maintenance man who's like, half these people left and there's all these bikes here and we don't know what to do, whatever. Yeah. So we get to see a lot of them. And I've gone into a bunch of them and they're all locked up and I went, oh, no problem. And we grab this cheap bike rack and go and like and all the bars fall out.
Right.
And like we just like pick the bikes up. Like, don't worry about it. I don't need a saw. Just pull this. And like, and I can say from being the guy picking up at a lot of these, like I do a lot of the pickups. Yeah. A lot of them are very poorly designed. Like talking about like at any age, like I need to lift this to 9 feet in the air.
Right.
I need to lock this to a PVC rack that I could just break off or whatever.
Yeah.
But then also, by the way, like on the flip side, like we're super grateful for people just
letting you have those
materials.
Frankly,
great.
It's like raw materials.
Yeah,
for
it's like
you can repurpose some
It's
of
really
that.
great. We take them out, we refurbish them, we get them in the Unibike program. I'm like, I'm super happy about this.
That's a win-win because then they have space.
And so as you set up like the nice bike rooms, I guess I'd just appreciate like, yo, and you should hit these people up when someone ditches their bike and whatever. But go ahead and highlight. So you have so you're selling the racks.
Yeah, we're selling the racks. We're designing the rooms.
Yep.
We are still doing our bicycle-friendly business programming.
Now, is that a for-hire thing or is that a
That is definitely a for-hire thing.
Yeah, okay.
And
So we want to be that. We're going to hire you to come in and help us get through the application, which, by the way, you want. It's not like, you kind of need someone to come in and do the application with
It's
you.
kind of, it's a big deal.
It's
it's
involved.
not just like a
It's
postcard
involved.
that you check a few boxes and send it
It's
in.
really not.
It's really not. And it shouldn't be, because this is, we want to have a high bar for that. So what the client in that case is the business district. Like USF Cutter was my client for a while, and so I did some of the work over there. And then
That's who helped us get in it.
yeah, yeah, they're great. And so so we work for the business districts who say, like, come and help all of our businesses here.
So like Visit Tampa Bay might say, hey, let's get all of Ybor or as many on Ybor.
I'm glad you said Visit Tampa Bay, because we have made many approaches to them, and they're not quite
Let's get it.
they're not quite hooking into the notion of bicycle tourism and that, not quite yet. They will get there, because every city is. But say, for instance, the West Shore Alliance is a great example. So the West Shore Alliance, as you all probably know, is the biggest one of the biggest business districts in the Southeast. So that's a lot of companies, that's a lot of commuters, and so they want to be bicycle friendly. They have a lot of hotels. They have a lot of people who, maybe needs-based cyclists, back of house, hospitality folks. And so we go in there, we teach bicycle safety, we give away bike lights. We want to make sure the people who need to ride are comfortable doing that and know some of the best tricks about that. And then we also consult on bike lanes. We do guided bike rides. So if conventioneers or a company or a group wants to say or says to us, show us what you're doing in Tampa, because in some places, Tampa is rocking it. And so we have good stuff to show off now. Yeah. Still a little disjointed, but we're really getting there, and we're getting there faster now. And so we are the ones that can show these different bike facilities and explain what's good about them, what's not good about them, to planners, to engineers, to the practitioners in that space. So we can literally just tell the truth and say, like, how many of you plan this stuff in your city? And 15 hands go up, and we go, okay, don't do this. This is why this doesn't work right here in this spot. And that's great. So we are for hire to lead bike rides. Water Street District asked me, as you may know, they are the first district in the United States to be certified as WELL District. That means wellness for the planet and for human beings. And you can feel it when you're there, because they have shade, they have music, they have good air, good water, and it's quiet. So these are all things that help humans be healthy. And so they were like, for their wellness certification, they needed to demonstrate that they are porous to the rest of the community. And what better way to show getting in and out of their district than on a bike?
There's no better way to get in and out of that district, because if you go in a car, you're screwed.
Yeah, and you might pay $20 for parking.
It's horrific. Yeah, I don't want to drive through there, but
no, you can bike there
down
now.
There is kind of dope. Yeah, it's a nice spot.
Yeah. So.
All right, let me rattle off some rapid fires.
Okay.
What is the thing that you would say you're most proud of? And this could be from your life or from your work or some blur of those. But what are you like really proud of? Well,
let's just take it as a given that I'm really proud that my sons are excellent human beings.
Good work.
Then we'll go to my professional life and my legacy. I'm really proud that I get a lot of credit for bringing Vision Zero to Tampa, and that bicycle-friendly business rating. To have good news of any kind for Tampa, Florida that is bike-related is fantastic.
Sure.
And then this World Car Free Day programming. I got to experience World Car Free Day in Brussels, Belgium. Now they are full on because they have so much transit.
There, right? Yeah.
People, in any day of the week, they could say it's car free. In Tampa, we have to stick to a Friday or Saturday. But anyway, I did that in 2019, World Car Free Day in Belgium. And I was there and I was like, why can't I want this in Tampa? Why can't we have nice things?
Mm-hmm.
So I came back and I partnered with some of my besties, and we started with the Fancy Women Bike Ride, which is always the day before World Car Free Day, because women and children, we are the canaries of the transportation system. If it works for us, it works for everybody. So we started in 2019 working towards World Car Free Day, and now Sunday we're having our second one. So
That's
I'm really
awesome.
proud of that.
Super excited about that.
Thanks.
Can you tell us about something that blew up in your face professionally and how you dealt with it?
You know, I've had a lot of stuff really blow up in my face, and I can't think of any one thing, honestly, because there's just, stuff's going to go wrong. Can I cuss?
Please.
Shit happens,
Yeah.
right? And so we have to take our lumps and we got to work through it. But I've always been a big believer that what is supposed to happen is going to happen for me. I count on the universe. I count on being a good person, the other people that I meet. And then when opportunities come up, when I'm really puzzling over something, or maybe something is broken or not working, I wait for that solution to present itself, and it always does.
You know, I actually want to emphasize something to everybody listening. So it's actually interesting to me that nothing stands out that blew up in your face, but lots of things have blown up in your face. Where that resonates with me is just entrepreneurship. Every day there's something on fire. Every day something is going wrong. Every day something is blowing up, such that I can't tell you anything. It's just Tuesday.
Yeah.
It's just
right?
It's just how it goes. But
Yeah.
You've oriented yourself in your story. You said, I was asking questions around body, budget, planet.
Yep.
I was orienting myself around how I could impact this community. I was orienting myself. It's like you have some North Star.
Yeah.
I'm headed to this dream.
Yeah.
But every day there's an obstacle and every day there's a challenge. But then when I ask you, tell us one, you're like, I don't know, it's not that big a deal. Actually nothing stands out.
If I may add, there's something that comes to mind. This has not happened, but is a kind of nightmare of mine. And that is that I fear one day that my grandchildren, I don't have any grandchildren right now, but I fear that they would look at me and they would say, did you know about, did you know our planet and our species was in peril? Did you know? And what drives me is I want to be able to look at their beautiful little faces and say, I devoted myself to this action. I did everything I could in this little space to make a difference. And so that hasn't happened, but it is something that drives me very, very much.
That's pretty profound. If you were to tell everybody here, and this could be 2, 3, let's say 2 or 3 books that you feel like every single person in this room, no matter what they're working on, should read.
I happen to have brought a couple of books.
Okay. You're like, yeah, I have them right here, actually.
Funny you should mention. So there's a lot of nonsense that we've all been taught about transportation and why it's broken. Every time there's a crash and someone, we say crash in advocacy, we do not say accident. Accident is left over from the industrial era where children were losing fingers in machines.
Whoops.
Right? And so those enterprises wanted to say, not my fault, not our fault. So the misnomers that we have about our transportation system result in us treating every crash, no matter what the mode, a car crash, a crash with a bike, a crash with a pedestrian, we treat those things as episodes. But we need to use an epidemiological lens because these are systems and patterns. This is just like cholera, where someone said, well, let's look at this situation holistically. If we have 50 crashes at the same intersection, it's not Bob and Jim's and Carol's, everybody who was in a crash. It's not their individual faults. There is something systemic there. Mm-hmm. And that's what this book was really profound. It's called Confessions of a Recovering Engineer. And it cites Daniel Kahneman, who's a renowned Nobel Prize winner in economics. You know Daniel Kahneman? And so, and he's one of the creators of the science of nudge. If you know nudge, fascinating, right? So he teaches us that our minds only operate in two ways. System one is like really acutely focused. System two is where we spend most of our time, because the human species, we can't be in system one all the time. It's impossible. There are too many things happening all around us that we would need to take in. So our road system is designed to lull us into system two. This is why you're driving somewhere and you arrive and you go, crap, I meant to go to work or to the grocery store, but you arrived where you don't even know that you did it.
Define system two real quick, because I got lost.
Yeah, system two thinking is more like autopilot. System two is where we can multitask. We're driving, we can adjust our navigation, turn on our podcast. We can do these other things. Mm-hmm. System one is where we are really engaged in the act of driving and of navigating. Mm-hmm. Like
present attention.
But our roads are designed to enable us to be in system two, in some cases even encourage system two. Mm-hmm. That's why you hear these crash reports and the person says, they came out of nowhere. Well, they came out of nowhere because you're in system two and you can't see them and you're traveling at 40 miles an hour, so your peripheral vision is gone and you only have like tunnel vision. That's the human body. That's our eyeballs. It's not that someone's being a jerk. That is just the human reality of operating a motor vehicle.
Yep.
So that's here in this book. And then the other one, this is very provocatively titled on purpose, but it's called Killed by a Traffic Engineer. So this is written by a professor. Believe it or not, he does use humor and storytelling throughout this, because otherwise who would read it? It's very depressing. But he just tells the truth that what we think is the engineering very scientific is not at all. Not at all. And so this is a reality that the engineering field needs to cop to, frankly. And all of the engineers that I'm close to, that are friends of mine, they've embraced this and they already know. They already know. So we have all these manuals and procedures that are put out by the U.S. Department of Transportation, by the Florida Department of Transportation, by the County Department of Transportation. All these guides that they used are not very scientific and are only used to have as many cars as fast as possible move about our community. And that's why it's so dangerous.
There's a section in this book called The Pirate's Code, which I really want to read. But that's maybe for later. All right. Who is the most innovative or inspiring person that you've ever met or read about?
Oh, wow. Gosh. I'm a podcast addict, and so I have a lot that I really love.
All right.
I will cite an organization that is really changing the language in this space, and it's called Strong Towns.
Okay.
Strong Towns, and the author of this book is Chuck Marohn, who is the founder of Strong Towns. And what's amazing about this movement, it's a movement, and it's really just permeating all through all communities, because people look around and they go, why does this part of our city suck? Like, you have people that are like building their own park benches for people taking transit. Like, they just, on their daily living in their community, they notice that there are people, older people, withering at a bus stop. So what do? They start making bus stop benches. You know, kind of like a little tactical urbanism, but also gathering with others who are like-minded. Like, we can fix some stuff on our own. We can fix some stuff just by collaborating.
Yep.
And so Strong Towns, I would say, is a, I just really adore what they publish and speak to. Oh, I got to add another one.
Yep, let's go.
This is a YouTube sensation called Not Just Bikes.
Not just bikes.
Not Just Bikes. And so that's a man named Jason Slaughter. And so check him out on YouTube. And I can also forward to you that we can put in the notes section of this podcast. There are 9 videos. They total about 1 hour, total 1 hour. And they are like warp speed introduction of why our transportation systems are so dangerous and suck.
I heard earlier that you could tell us why our transportation is dangerous in one word. Can you do that in one word?
I can. It's speed. And when I say speed, I don't mean speeding, which most people are prone to perceive, but the posted speeds. The posted speeds in Hillsborough County on the high injury network are posted, meaning what we're supposed to do, and we don't even do that, right? We do go faster. The posted speeds on 80% of the high injury corridors are posted at 20 miles an hour higher than they should be if they were new roads today. So our expectation
are they grandfathered somehow?
No, they just haven't been changed yet. And it's not just the posted, changing a posted speed is not as important as changing the design of a speed, because we will all drive at a speed that feels natural in any space.
To that environment, whether you put it
Yes.
on a road diet or
Exactly.
right.
So that's called the design speed.
Yep.
But the expectation that we all have of moving really fast through our community is set by the DOTs, Departments of Transportation, that post these speed limits and design the roads, and it's just too high. Remember what I said, we lose our peripheral vision. The faster we go, the less we see, and that's my one word, speed.
That is true. If you guys haven't seen that, like there's actually really real, like you can actually like follow these studies of like what you're actually in your line of sight based on how fast you go, which is not hard to intuit. If you're like, I'm hauling ass, I'm looking at like the hood ornament.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, this is,
Yeah.
so for everybody here, for the community at large, for people listening, if you said the community should focus on, okay, let me ask it like this. What should the community focus on over the next couple years that you would say would make the biggest impact and add the most beauty and value to our world?
Okay, so I'm going to say transit. And when I say transit, of course I mean heart, but transit doesn't work unless it has its own lane. Because if you're on any kind of transit and it's stuck in traffic, you're not going to do it. We need a ferry system. Excuse me. We are the largest metropolitan area in the United States that is surrounded by water that does not have a meaningful ferry system. We have a seasonal ferry that's mostly tourism based. So we need real transit. Means you don't have to check your watch. It comes fast, it comes regular, you just show up and you know you're gonna get where you're going. So that's real transit, reliable. And so I'd say transit. The other thing I'd say is, and Tampa is making great progress now, a connected network. Right now, our bicycle facilities, or what is called active transportation, meaning we're using our body in some way to propel us.
Yep.
Active transportation network in Tampa looks like a drop plate of spaghetti and none of the noodles are touching. So we need the connected network of very, very, what they call high comfort, like the cast cycle track.
Yeah.
That's what we need. I'm not counting the painted lanes on a high-speed road. And I personally do not bike in the door swing zone, right? This is a bike lane where there's parking against the curb, And so
That's horrifying. I've actually had one of the
horrifying.
most scary things that ever happened to me in one of those.
Right. And so I say, well, thank you, community, for giving me this crappy bike facility, but I'm not using it. I will, using my rear view mirror, I will ride in the middle of that road. And then if someone comes up behind me and seems a little like they're putting pressure on me, I will move out of their way and let them go. I'm not a jerk, but I am not riding in that door swing zone. So no, thank you.
By the way, we were talking about this before we started tonight. And I know just from riding myself, there's a lot of people that get really irritated with you taking the lane, riding in the road, which, by the way, as a cyclist, you have every right to do.
It is legal and appropriate.
And yet, and I know, and I said this to you, I feel like you had a good, like, pithy saying comeback, but, like, I'm like, yeah, you're pissed.
Yeah.
But you being pissed is like, you see me.
That's right.
And, like, I'm like, I'm actually good, like, with you being pissed because I'm not hugging the corner and getting sideswiped. Whereas if I take the lane, it's like, yeah, I'm not as fast as these other cars, but I have a right to be out here. And I was just curious, like, how you, even just for those that are getting into this or learning how to ride, like where you find that, like, your place in that, in traffic.
Like how to occupy space in the safest possible way. Let me preface by saying it's completely context-based. So I don't know your neighborhood. I don't know the roads that you're dealing with.
Fuck Bush Boulevard.
Oh, mama,
like, I'm not riding Bush Boulevard like that.
No. But in general, the safest place for a person on a bike to ride on, let's call it, like our most of our routes would be comprised of 2-lane roads, meaning one lane in one direction and another lane in the other direction, right? So these 2-lane roads with speeds, for me personally, speed limits have to be around 30 for me to do this, but it's enough of a network that I can make my way around town for 15 years. You're supposed to ride large. A person on a bike is supposed to ride in the middle of the lane. And the reason that you're supposed to do that is because when you hug that curb, when you are way over on the right-hand side, you give motorists behind you the impression that they could probably squeeze by. And you could be injured or killed and they are long gone. You're also very invisible in that space to the cross streets or to the driveways. Any apron that you might come across, you're invisible. So if you place yourself where a motorist's eyes are automatically going to go as they go about their drive, you place yourself in the middle. Use the rear view mirror, as I recommend. My #1 safety feature is the rear view mirror. You're keeping an eye on what's happening. And if people are coming too close or making you uncomfortable, you just signal, you move out of the way, and then you get right back in the middle of that lane. My motto is, this is what I was saying to you, you might be annoyed, but I'm not dead.
I like that.
That works for me. It does take practice. You got to be pretty bold, but it is the safest way.
It does suck to get screamed at. Like it
does.
Actually
I got
is a
honked
shitty
at.
experience.
People inside of car don't know how loud their horn is on the outside of the car. And you can really, I get very rattled by that. But again, I arrived here despite having been honked at on 7th Ave. By the way, it is legal in Florida for a motorist passing a slower moving vehicle, like a person on a bike or a golf cart or anything else. It's legal to cross over a double yellow line as long as there's no oncoming traffic. So you do have the legal right to pass me, and we're all happy and safe. And when someone's passing me, I give them the wave over my shoulder. If they, I just, sometimes I'll go, thanks. The whole point is you see me and I see you,
Totally.
and I know what you're doing and you know what I'm doing, and everybody's going to be okay.
All right, so I don't want to run out of time without
we want some
opening
Q&A,
this up to
right?
folks in the room. Like, I want to know, some of you maybe came with questions, some of you maybe questions emerged as we came through the night. Are there any questions in the room? And by the way, just for you and for everyone, like, because we're recording this, I'm probably going to need to repeat the question just before you answer.
Right, because
Just
we're mic'd.
so that we have it on camera.
That's a good.
But yeah, any questions?
I had a question. When you mentioned that like 80% of your transport is on your bike and the other 20% is car or maybe public, I was just wondering like the distance that you go on your bike when you can take, like do you?
That is a great question because not everybody could.
Time out.
Sorry, repeat the question.
Yeah, you probably heard it because she's close, but like you said, 80% of your transportation is by bike.
It's car free, yeah.
It's car free.
Car free.
And so I'm curious, like, what is the distance you're traveling?
Yeah.
When you're doing that portion of the thing, like what are we talking about here?
What are we really talking about?
Yeah.
So my bubble, if you will, most of us live a life where we are getting to most of our places within a 5-mile distance. So it's about 5 to 7 miles. And I do use an electric bike. That's very important in Tampa, Florida.
Nice.
She's a sweet ride. That's a Bosch motor. And I've had her for 5 years. So you may know that e-bikes are the fastest growing type of bike.
Yeah, we've heard.
Demand.
We need to get into that space.
Does that answer your question? All right. Who else? Yes.
Next one. So you guys kind of mentioned a little bit, like there's some, I guess the right word, maybe like animosity between motorists and bicyclists. Do you do any like work to try to like bridge that gap, or is it kind of like I'm not going to talk to people who are always going to be angry at me? You know?
So it seems like from what I'm hearing, there's some animosity between like motorists and pedestrians, cyclists, kind of, and I'm curious, do you focus exclusively on the cyclists or facilitate communication between those two populations? Or are you like, F them motorists?
Yeah.
Right? That's what you asked? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. So all of the work that I do and that we do at the nonprofit Walk Bike Tampa, we hold all modal options equal. So we are not, we are trying to bring to bear the notion that the expectation of speed in an urban environment is too high. So we're trying to teach, but we don't shame anybody. And you know, there can be. It's really frustrating for people. Many people do not know the appropriate place for a person on a bike to be on the road. They don't know those things.
They do not.
And so they can respond with hostility. That has happened to me. But I present like the Dutch lady in Tampa, Florida. So the people who really get a lot of hostility are the people in sport gear. They are treated very poorly by those hostile motorists.
Really?
Yeah. They do these black cloud things where they can do a plume of exhaust.
Like the big diesel trucks or whatever?
It's really bad. There was a sheriff in Pinellas County that tried to run a cyclist down.
And this is mostly because they're dressed like dorks?
I don't know.
Sorry, okay.
I can't make any sense of it.
Okay.
But there's a saying that was created a few years ago, and it's this: there won't be peace on our roads until everyone has a piece of the road. And I really believe that. So I think if you want if you want our city to be great, you have to understand there will be a variety of modes sharing. Did you have a question? Yeah.
I'm a student at USF, so I wanted to know like your thoughts about the infrastructure around USF, and then I had a secondary question about micromobility and like scooter use in Tampa in general.
So he's a USF student who wants to know what your thoughts are around the infrastructure surrounding the university, which I think is a phenomenal question. And then also, like secondarily, or another question is like micromobility options in general.
Tampa, or the state of micromobility in Tampa.
And then particularly in the university area.
Oh. Well, you know, we talked about this before we started this podcast. We're just going to tell the truth. So the university area is horrible, and it's really bad. It is flanked by a bunch of state roads where the speeds are way too high. They have done some recent improvements to some key facilities, meaning bikeways, with those bollards, you know, that's
The turn lanes or whatever.
the turn
yeah.
lanes. And so, but the campus itself is just a big, stinky suburban footprint. It's horrible. I wish they would take a lot of that green space and really make it park-like, because a lot of the buildings there have like a lawn, but no one goes there. No one would sit in a chair under a beautiful oak tree there. You actually have crossing guards for university students. So I think it's a horrible footprint, and others have proposed like making some changes, but until the leadership of USF wants to make it more like a city, it's going to be the way that it is. And that just means very car-centric. They do not charge for parking when I'm a guest at USF. Charge me. I will pay $3 to go to the Marshall Center for a conference and then use my $3 and everybody else's $3 to make the roads safer.
I am curious about the charge piece. Like, it distracted me because I'm like, they definitely charge or they ticket for not having like a day pass. You might get away with it. My car does not.
Oh.
Yeah, they're pretty, like, they definitely do charge, or someone gives you a parking pass so you can come on campus for the scratch off ticket date.
Yeah.
However, like the
Yeah.
question around the micromobility and the other options.
Yes, I'm sorry. I've
Around
skipped
the
over.
university area, I wanted to bring back up because I know that many organizations in the, like, that's where our bike shop is. We work
Yeah.
with UACDC, Well Bikes is there. We work with a handful of organizations in that neighborhood that the number 1 or 2 obstacle to employment and education is actually listed as transportation.
Yeah.
And so car ownership is out of reach for many people in the
For a
community.
lot of people.
And we try to do what we can for bike ownership, but at the same time, like, there have been many, many, many companies that have come in and said, we want to help with scooters, e-bikes, bike shares, like, and there's been resistance from, like, if you can't get USF on board, you can't do it in the community.
Yeah.
And are you familiar with that conversation?
I am intimately familiar with all the
Well,
micromobility.
tell him all about it.
Stuff.
That's what he's asking.
And I encourage you to look for information via podcast or any other research you want to do. The McKinsey Company, which is a global management consulting firm, they actually have an urban transportation research group that's based out of Germany. And they are putting out the most fantastic data about the need and the utilization of small urban devices in micromobility. Now, in Tampa and in lots of other cities, if you don't have a safe network for people to use, it's not going to be successful. So we have a long way to go in Tampa, but we do have some of the brightest minds in the city working on getting us to the next level. So we do want to have electric scooters, but we need to have appropriate parking for the scooters, because we don't want pedestrian encumbered to be encumbered by scooters that are tipped over or left on the sidewalk willy-nilly. It has to be really clear when you use a scooter or an electric bike from Lime or Spin or any of the others that you can see in your landscape. It's intuitive. You know, I'm going to go put it over there in that hub.
Yeah.
That's where it's supposed to be. If I don't put it there, the provider will kind of ping me and tell me you're not doing it right, and could you go ahead and put it over there? And it's really quite a balancing act. I have to give a shout out and some credit to the city of St. Petersburg. I don't know if any of you have been over there or experienced St. Pete a little bit, but St. Pete started with a very safe network. They are certified as a silver bicycle-friendly city to Tampa's bronze. So I like to say that's like the Richter scale of earthquakes. Like, there are many, many, many degrees between bronze and silver. So you know it when you're there.
Yeah,
but
it's
they
pretty
started
obvious.
with a safe network, and they started with a good plan for the hubs. And in Tampa, we didn't really do that. We were like hubless in some areas, some not. Some of the districts got really irritated, and they should if they're blocking sidewalks, because sidewalks like
Yeah.
at along Central Ave in St. Pete, that is commerce for the business. They have alfresco dining everywhere. And so that's an economic contribution to the city. And so they don't want the scooters buzzing on the sidewalks. They need to be in the streets, but the streets need to be safe. So those are some of the challenges. Was that enough of an answer? Okay.
Yeah.
Just to piggyback off that idea of how the scooter introduction into the city was kind of considered chaotic, the way that they could just be skirting about in that scenario, and now we've gone through this process of having a designated parking point that, to me, is, I think, a regressive aspect of it, to be quite honest with you. I think it's the fact that it wasn't pre-planned and that the hubs are kind of arbitrary and that they're not well functioning in regards to if you're renting one of those e-scooters, it being within a geofence that can actually shut the bike off, and you're constantly going back and forth. For example, on 15th Palm, right by the HEB corner there,
Yeah.
the actual drop-off spot is on one side of the street, where the geofence actually picks it up on the other side of the street.
Yeah.
So once that process kind of came into play, I feel like it just regressed the usability of that as a micromobility tool, because especially if you're someone who feels endangered in certain areas and you wanted to go, for example, here at Ybor, La Satima on the corner there of Nebraska and 7, the closest drop-off point for a scooter now is at the Encore building.
Yeah.
That's 6 blocks south. You're walking at
Very
the
impractical. Yeah.
sidewalk. It
Yeah.
now creates a scenario where actually using micromobility in a small urban environment like Ybor, I manage Ybor Lofts, the apartment building here on 12. To go from there to La Satima now, I'm either walking or driving. You know, I can bike obviously, but during this time of year, e capability is so much more beneficial. You don't have to focus on
Yeah.
other guys sweating, that kind of idea. And now that has been taken away completely because of the aesthetics of a crowd who, you know, can't necessarily just put it up against a wall kind of thing. We now have to legislate for the lowest common denominator, so to speak. And instead of having a pre-planned set of hubs that make more sense, for example, the apartment building I manage, the actual hub is at the post office 3 blocks away. You have a number of people who are of a younger age, maybe kind of concerned. Do you feel like trying to legislate for that aspect and to have these sort of circumstances make it look prettier, not take away from the actual function of micromobility?
There is no way I can repeat that question. This will probably be the last question because we need to
Yeah.
wrap up here.
I can give it a shot though if you.
But if you want to
me
recap that or go,
Yeah.
I'm like legislation versus functionality.
Right. Yes.
More or less.
And I'm going to say it back to you, and so just not if I'm getting you, and I'll try to paraphrase a little bit. But you've observed that the city of Tampa's micromobility launch was flawed because we used the hubless system to start, and then we got a lot of complaints from the neighborhoods and it wasn't really working. So now we've gone to a hub system, but it's so constricting. The hubs are not well, there's not enough of them and they're not distributed well enough to be of good use in the community.
Yeah.
You got that? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I'll say this. You're right. But I will, let me, so I've observed the same thing. I actually did some work with Lime as a diverse business enterprise. They hired me to help them launch and be successful in Tampa. So the launch was successful because we had a lot of ridership. But many of you probably know the strain in the tech field that was about 2 or 3 years ago and is still now. So the venture capital dried up for the micromobility providers. It's been a really difficult time for these firms. They have to stand on their own operation strength. And so many of them have constricted or gone broke. That is not related to our city in any way. But where we have solid, sustainable companies, those are the ones that Tampa, I believe, is working with or should work with to get a really robust program so that it's easy to use and easy to store the vehicles in a manner that does not disrupt people walking. So that's a very astute observation. And I'm looking forward to the newer version, as I'm sure you are.
Do you feel that the ability to go to the city or to the provider with like a location
Yeah.
End user, who can I talk to about
Yeah.
that sort of thing direct to them?
Mm-hmm.
Or like, just a suggestion aspect of it.
Right.
So I've waited for the guys to come and pick them up and charge them. Like, hey, do you have a supervisor that I could possibly reach out to and ask?
Yeah.
I need to go, at that base level and
Right.
not a customer service agent.
For those utilizing these services, is there a good go-to point of contact? And we need to wrap this up here pretty quick, but is there a good go-to point of contact, whether with the provider, like from a Lime, or from the city or the municipality within which they're located?
So the way that works best is that it is a city person, because there is a city administrator for all the micromobility firms. And so I can give that person that contact information to you, but that's the way it should work, is where the city is deeply invested in where all the hubs are and that they're open to feedback. There have been many hubs that were closed down just because the neighborhoods kind of squawked. Well, they should have been moved, or there should have been engagement with those respective neighborhoods saying, like, this is important and we do need it here, but we understand it doesn't work in this particular spot, so we will move it across the street or one parking spot down or what have you. So yes, there is a point person in Tampa. He's an amazing person, and I will get you his contact information.
So in closing, one of the things that I want to point out, like, while her passion has clearly been around the mobility options in transit and cycling, and while that isn't necessarily everybody's calling and passion, what I do think is really important to point out is that for Christine, and like as we listen to her story, that becoming an like getting an existential reality of the landscape, feeling a burden inside her to like do something about it, to say, I'm just one person, what could I ever do with, the climate anxiety down to the day-to-day functionality, but to say, like, I came up with a way to say, listen, I'm going to ask questions about my body, my budget, and the planet, both personally and professionally. I'm going to engage myself in ways that are going to add value to the community. I'm going to build businesses that are not just around the bottom line, but around the impact that it makes in the community. And I just thought this is why I wanted to bring her in to share her story, because I think it's such a great example for any of you with whatever it is that you care about, with whatever it is you think that you bring to the vision for a well-built city, a city that literally works for every one of our neighbors, whether it be around food or transportation or housing or whatever the things that we need to engage with is. I thought that she made a really good template for someone who said, existentially, I realized this need. Then vocationally, I realized the opportunity. And then in some spiritual way, almost, I went, I'm dedicated to a cause. Like, I found a North Star, and I found some metrics around my body, my budget, and the planet to ask questions against when I make decisions, so that I could take personal responsibility for the condition of my city, and that I could answer the questions that my grandchildren might ask me about the crisis that they might face. To go, well, I did my best, and I lived a life that I want to be able to answer for with some sense of conscience. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you so much for your work, for sharing your story. We're super grateful. And guys, stay tuned. We got to have a chat with the venue here about the next few months, if this is like where we'll be doing this at. Hopefully we will, but we'll see. But stay tuned on socials. We are going to plan on continuing this series on the third Thursday of every month. So just be on the lookout for where it'll be the third Thursday, but like where we're at next month. And thank you guys so much. Appreciate you.